We are live. How's it going, guys? It's Thomas on Planet Tech. Welcome back to Let's Talk Mandalorian Chapter 20, The Foundling. It was about a half-hour episode. I am joined by Rosie, Tommy, and not
23 minutes, actually.
Oh, okay. Sorry. 23 minutes. But yeah, we'll be talking Chapter 20 today. Let us know your thoughts and feelings in the chat. It's always hugely appreciated. If there's any things you want us to cover in particular, then we will do just that. We have got another guest just popped in as well. How you doing, Matt? Good to see you.
Good. How you guys going?
Yeah, very good. Thank
All
you.
good.
Very good. Okay, so Tommy, you said there was it because we haven't had you on yet. Do you want to? There was a couple of points you wanted to make about the previous episodes because we haven't really spoke about it because you were like a little bit behind watching the first couple. So yeah, did you want to bring them up first?
I mean, I can start if that's what you guys are all cool with.
Let's do it.
I just wanted to, like, before the stream began, we were obviously just chatting about like how I was saying I catched up with last week's episode of your guys' discussion on episode 3, and I want to defend it a little bit.
Okay.
Even though it was a side tangent to a lot of like the Mando story, I truly believe it's one of the most interesting things that's happened in the series.
Okay.
As opposed to this current episode, where I think a lot of it, honestly, was boring rubbish. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the only good part of this episode was obviously the flashback.
Okay.
And I'm really curious to see what you guys say about the main story of this episode, as opposed to, yes, they gave it a very long time, and compared to this week's one, which was a very short episode, but I feel like that story in the previous episode needed that time to breathe. And the only thing I disliked about it was the very end, which was obviously, you built up this entire story with the Doctor, and then you seem to get rid of it at the very last minute. But hopefully that leads to something else, and I can give that a pass in the hopes that it leads to something else in next week's episode.
Yeah, I guess with last week's episode, it was like, I don't think we truly don't know the significance of it yet.
I completely agree.
And it's like when we do, then maybe we'll appreciate it a bit more. But I feel like for a lot of people, for me, kind of it come out of a bit of a left field.
The ending, certainly.
Yeah.
I'd say, just in terms of, later on we'll appreciate what it means and things like that. I just think if you're at that point where you need that later on to really appreciate it, like you can't get something out of it now, that's just forced storytelling.
Yeah.
But the thing I have issue with, and this is what you guys were talking about last week, is that I feel like there was substance there. It was just the last 5 minutes kind of derailed what was going to be a really good episode.
I think because you felt like it like concluded itself almost too quickly without any
with no substance.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that if the episode ending was very different, I think that a lot of people would say that this is one of the strongest episodes in the series so far. It's just because you weren't given that final bit of context that the story ended up being kind of negated because of the end.
Yeah.
That's Rosie dropping everything, by the way, guys.
The amount of damage I've just caused. I'm so...
Come on, turn the camera on.
Get the camera on, Rosie. Show it.
I would take the pictures here after, but it's appalling.
But yeah, the episode itself, I felt, was very, very good up until the last 5 minutes, and I just want to defend it because I feel like there was really good storytelling. Yeah, there was a few hiccups, like the jumping off the train thing. I think that was complete rubbish.
Yeah.
And obviously the ending, which is they're clearly trying to do that to set up another episode, which I feel like they should have just told us what was going on,
So
because it would have created some more intrigue.
yeah. So because that episode wasn't filled with like tons of like, maybe arguably towards the end of it, like there wasn't tons of suspense. It was very story and like communication, like it was very verbally driven, that kind of episode, last week's episode. Do you think, I think like for me, it would have been better to structure it maybe a little bit more like Andor did, where they were jumping between characters across multiple episodes rather than just one whole episode that kind of feels so much different and so much jaded. If the paths of all these characters are going to cross point at some point anyway, I feel like that's a better way to do it. I don't know. Hi Stud and hi H2000, by the way. Yeah, Tommy, what's your kind of thoughts on that? Like, or do you like it's completely separate?
I agree in a sense that like it probably would have been better to do like how they did it with the like Mando at the beginning, and then it was a Dr. Pershing episode, and then it was Mando at the end.
Yeah,
I agree. There probably should have been a case of like it probably should have started with Dr. Pershing and then intercut between Mando and Bo-Katan doing stuff. But at the same time, I feel like that could have convoluted the episode even more than it and broke the suspense. Because once they entered once they entered the Star Destroyer and they were like looking around, I was actually saying, because I was watching it with Rosie, I was actually saying like I'm really impressed that they managed to take a relatively boring character from the previous 2 seasons and make him super interesting. And then the last 5 minutes happened, and I was kind of a bit like, oh, okay.
That's drag on.
So yeah, I'm not saying the episode's perfect. I'm really not, but I think it was definitely one of the better episodes out of this series so far, because the current episode, one we're about to discuss, for me, if this had been season 1 of Mandalorian, I would have stopped watching after this episode.
Really? Okay.
Because it was that boring.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so just as a rough
What I would say.
Well, one second, Rosie. Just for a rough ballpark, then, Tommy, could you just give us a couple, like, your scores for like the first, do the first 3 episodes, like, just so we know like roughly what your feeling is without going into them all completely.
It's tough to say. Episode 1 is probably it's probably 5-ish out of 10. It's not good, but it's not bad.
Okay.
It was a lot of traveling. I really liked the IG bit. But other than that, it wasn't really, again, substantial. Episode 2 is probably a 6. I liked it more than the first episode. Episode 3 is probably a 7. I liked it the most out of the series so far. And then episode 4 is probably a 3. Apart from the flashback scene, which was an 8. Okay. So
cool.
That's kind of how I feel about the series so far. I think it's just so apparent, and this is something that like has happened across all of the episodes so far. It's so apparent that they just don't have any direction with this series. Like just in the storytelling and the writing, the character development, they've just got no direction. And I think it's really hard to tell a story when you don't know the story itself. So I'm hoping that changes throughout the next couple of episodes, and I will be watching them, even though I would have stopped watching if this was season 1. The previous 2 seasons have kind of kept me hooked on it. But yeah, I think this is definitely the weakest episode, and I really hope they can like claw it back with a really good episode next week.
Okay, Rosie, what were you gonna say? You were gonna say something?
I was gonna say I don't. It seems that you're defending like the way they did the episode, like the principle of it, which I don't entirely object to, is spending 59 minutes on these side characters. But what I think is like the fatal error they made is that during those long 59 minutes, I never really developed like any sort of attachment to the character enough where I actually cared about what was going on. It was only sort of Dr. Pershing who was sort of remotely interesting, because it was sort of predictable that whatever her name is was sort of like on like the bad side still. I think the fact that I finished that episode not actually caring about, because we can like speculate, okay, what does like, what's going to lead on from this? I understand us like not knowing what was going on past that point of that episode, but I don't think you can defend the viewer just left being like, I don't even care what happens with this, what happens with this character, what happens from this point afterwards. Especially when you're spending 59 minutes with them. Like even you said yourself, Tommy, that during the episode you find yourself checking your phone and stuff.
That was for episode 4.
Oh, was it not for episode 3?
No, episode 3. Episode 3, I genuinely was enjoying the character development. I was hoping that this would lead into something a bit more substantial, and I was enjoying the fact that they seemed very morally grey. Like you couldn't really tell whether they were going to be like, whether they were going to subvert expectations and be like, oh no, it is actually for the rebellion, or whether it's going to be a case of, oh, they are actually loyal to the Empire still. It's one of those cases where I just wasn't sure, and I was really intrigued to find out. But there are so many things in this series, and I've discussed this with Rosie a bunch because we've been watching the episodes, and right after we have a discussion, there's a lot of things in this series, and this is across all the episodes, not just episode 3, that there's just some things that you could have gone, oh, if they'd done this tiny tweak, it would have just made the episode way better. Like instead of them jumping off of the train, they could have had the woman who was I've forgotten her name. Yeah, that one. Like she could have gone up to the, there were those droids that were asking for the tickets.
Yeah.
If she had gone up to them and had like a whispered conversation, and then they'd backed off,
that probably would have made it way too obvious, though.
It would have made it obvious, but at the same time, like that's giving us, the audience, a kind of, oh, okay, she said something. What she said. So then when she backstabs him earlier, we can expect. It just creates more intrigue in the character, and we kind of then expect the backstab a bit more. Yeah, it kind of breaks the illusion. It breaks the twist, but like at the same time, I feel like it would have been a more satisfying bit of the story, at least for an audience member, and you wouldn't have had that god awful jumping off the train scene, which a lot of people absolutely detest.
It's so apparent that what they jump onto is airbags as well. I don't know if people have clocked that, like by watching the show. If you see it, you can just so clearly see.
I wanted to forget that scene as soon as I saw it, Tech, so I didn't go back.
That's fair. Okay, so we'll start going on. Hey, boss man, how you doing, dude? Chapter 20 then. Matt, kick us off. What your kind of thoughts, feelings on chapter 20?
I thought it was I think we got to the end of the last episode, and I said, look, for the next episode, I want to know, how Grogu fits into it, how, they're sort of moving forwards and everything like that. So I think from that point of view, it was good. And, it started to put Grogu, okay, he's going to start learning the ways of Mandalore and things like that, and then getting that dynamic. It was good to see how they started to bring together, I guess, how Bo-Katan fits in with, all that sort of the clans coming together. Yeah. In that sort of common goal to go and rescue the son sort of thing. So those elements were good. There's just a couple little dumb things, and I think this gets into a little bit what Tommy's sort of saying. Like, they live in this place where they're getting attacked. In the first episode, it was like the crocodile creature. In this one, it's the winged creature. It's kind of like, okay, I get you using it to move the story forward, but it's so sort of, for this great warrior race sort of thing, they just do some really dumb things. That was that. And then, of course, the Order 66 stuff. I mean, it's great to sort of see all that sort of stuff and flesh that out a little bit more. And I like the way that they're sort of teasing parts of that. And in terms of we're getting a bit now, I think, did we get a little bit at the beginning of the first episode or maybe last season? So, I really like those parts of it.
Yeah. That's what I think I like in terms of, and I know that's a lot harder to do the more characters that you try and do it with. But like, I do think that they're doing the Grogu stuff really well with the flashbacks and kind of establishing, and they did it well in the first in the first series as well, with like when Din Djarin had his flashbacks as well. They kind of broke those up a little bit, and as the season went on, we saw a little bit more of that. Like, I like that. I do wonder if the story would have helped if maybe even spread the like Pershing arc like over a couple of episodes if it was splitting up. But Rosie, what about you? What are your takes on this episode?
I don't think it was as bad as what most people think, because I think you've got to look at it. If you look at the specifics, that the fact that this, as Matt said, basically, that this great Mandalorian race is constantly getting attacked by these creatures, and they even said like, "Oh, that's like the 7th time this raptor's taken children."
Yeah.
It's like, well, just move. Like, there's no substantial reason why you're in the specific cave. Like, you've got ship. There's 40 of you. You must have like. There's no way you haven't got a ship to like. How would you get there in the first place? Like, just move.
Yeah.
It's like you're living in Australia or something. Everything just wants to kill you. But I think if you focus on the specifics, you're just going to get wound up. Especially if the whole like child is alive inside the raptor's mouth for like two whole days. And just get spat
that's
out.
one of the big things I had a problem with this episode.
Yeah. And obviously it's just bad writing, right? But I think you look at it, it's 23 minutes and 20 seconds or whatever it is, the episode. And if you take a step back of what actually gets progressed, as we said at the end of episode 2, I think it is, or something like that, when like Bo-Katan joins the Creed after getting back from Mandalore, and how like not everyone is sort of like with Din Djarin and Bo-Katan, like especially that blue guy, I don't know his name. He seems very like doubtful, and so you need to basically establish like those two characters sort of like making up to them and sort of banding together, and this episode basically did that with the mission. Like Bo-Katan did the most honorable thing you can do in the Creed by saving a child, and that's gained her a lot of respect, and we've seen that. So she's advanced. You see Grogu sort of starting this training to become like a Mandalorian, and you obviously see the flashback, and so I think the story's progressed quite substantially in 23 minutes. But I just think like it could have obviously done that a lot better. I think that obviously again the writing's pretty poor, but I think if it was like a 16 episode series type thing, you could sort of forgive like a one-off sort of like average episode like this. But because it's only 8 episodes, it sort of stings a bit more than what it would like ordinarily would do. But it's an okay episode. It's just that's
I agree.
my thoughts on it.
I agree. I think there's a lot of parts of this episode that actually do a very good job at like because obviously we saw in Book of Boba Fett, Paz Vizsla challenged Din for the Darksaber. Din's now helped save his son. That kind of squashes that beef. There's kind of a mutual respect there. It would now make sense for them to go and team up and do whatever mission that this clan is going to do together, right? Same, like you said, with Bo-Katan. She's done the most noble thing. She's now very well respected, and there's a mutual trust there. Now they can kind of rely on her. They're not going to see her as this kind of big outcast. Like she's like committed herself to this, at least for now. And I agree. I think this kind of episode reminds me a lot of the kind of the similar structure to especially like season 1. Where it kind of was this self-secluded thing. And whilst it didn't have a huge contribution to the overall arcing progression of this series, it kind of did a very good job for me of being able to then go forward now. Because if we had gone into something where this clan would all go, and because it looks like they're going to go and do something on Navarro, like they're obviously going to go back there at some point. It kind of wouldn't have seemed. There would have been a lot of questions of why they're suddenly all band together, because there's definitely these like fragmented relationships within the group. So I think this episode did a good job of that. I thought the visuals were pretty good on this one. So like as a self-secluded episode, I think it was quite good, and I got a decent amount of enjoyment out of it. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of like a mix between all of you in a way, where I say overall I did enjoy the episode, but like with the main plot of them going after the bird or dinosaur or whatever the hell it was, it was like it did feel too similar to the first scene of the season, fighting the big animal. Like if they could just do something a bit different to maybe make a little bit of a twist.
Yeah.
And I also agree with what you said. If they had found a way to intersplice this episode between the last one and jumping back between Pershing and no one knows the name of the girl, but her doing their thing, and then Mando, Bo-Katan, and Paz like going after the kid, I think therefore you've got like a story which is a bit quieter and a bit more like character driven, whereas you've got the other story which is a bit more action driven, and then they can balance each other, like balance two episodes out a lot better than having two episodes next to each other with drastic tonal shifts.
Yeah, that's a very fair point.
Like each like major Star Wars show that comes out does have quite a different tone. Yeah, and I felt like last episode, as everyone pretty much said, felt like an Andor episode pretty much.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I guess this episode did feel a lot more like regular Mando.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very fair point. I agree. I think even if, like you said, they took 2 episodes to spice the story of this up, like, and they could have definitely if they were doing it across 2 episodes, they could have beefed out the like Mando like tracking the child out a bit longer, like, and that would have made sense. It would have put a bit more weight
and you
on
could
it.
establish further like Paz and Mando's past issues, because I felt like that was quite quickly washed over, that they had a big fight in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I guess because maybe not a lot of people watch that show, and that's why the first episode of this season was basically Boba Fett catch up.
Yeah.
That might be the reason why.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay, so what okay, has anyone else got anything to add, like generally? Is there anything you guys want to talk about specifically in a bit more depth?
I just have a general question. If it's too crass, let me know.
Go on.
How do Mandalorians have children?
Well,
they can't take off the helmets.
Well, is it Zion or something who was that Twi'lek bounty hunter from season 1 made a joke about getting it off with Mando, didn't she? And the helmet stayed on. So I guess the helmet stays on during sex.
I guess
you have to split everything into canon. Like, that's ridiculous. Oh my god!
It's just honestly, when he first it was like a big reveal half the episode that was his son. I was like, hang on, you seem a lad who's very dedicated to this career.
You should ask the panel at Star Wars Celebrations, man.
Can you imagine you stand up? You stand up. Hi, I've got a question for Paz Vizsla.
Oh, celebration, I'm there. Hi.
How are you?
How do Mandalorians have sex?
You guys got a lot of kids. But
Jay Filoni's just sat there like, what the fuck?
Was that kid like his actual son, or was he a foundling? Like, again, because
I think it implied it was his son.
Yeah.
But then in the first episode, I think it more implied that he was a foundling, and when he looked more than old enough to say the creed earlier than when he was there, like the first episode. So I feel like he could obviously talk in that first episode, and so he could have he felt old enough that he could have recited the creed like 2 or 3 years younger than what he was. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm reading too much into that side of it, but no, Sam, you bring up a very valid point. What's his name? Ragnar, something like that. But no, it's a great it's a great question. Oh dear, how do Mandos get it on? Okay, what was there any other things other than Sam's crass
the one thing, and getting back to what a couple of people commented on, and I think even we said last episode in terms of that doctor part, there was lots of interesting threads in that, as we sort of said, in terms of where the areas of grey are. The execution of it was, for me personally, I didn't think it was brilliant. The other thing which we sort of said is the tone. For me, that episode was like, you've gone along to watch a football match, you watch the first 5 minutes, it's really high stakes, and then they decide that they're going to play a tennis match for the next 45 minutes, and you're just like, okay, I'm kind of confused here. And then you go back to the football to watch the end of it, and it's sort of like, as we said, that would feel fine in Andor, but in this one, without enough context, you're just sort of like, okay, that could have been great. It could have been kids doing something. It could have been the finals, quarterfinals. Like I just don't know what I've watched. Like, and I think that gets into then, well, what is the tone of the Mandalorian show meant to be? Because originally it felt like it started out as like a space western, the lone gunslinger, particularly when they had, and I always get, is it Cobb? What was Cobb Flam? That definitely played into that. And okay, it has to evolve and change, but what is it meant to be at the moment?
Yeah. I think, and I think this is something that they really struggled with Boba Fett as well, is like, what was the tone? What was the, what was it stylistically? Because season 1 and 2 of Mando felt very Mando. Like they set, the first couple of episodes set exactly what the show was going to be, like you said, Matt. And for the majority of, well, for all of season 1, definitely, for the majority of season 2, we kind of knew what, in some sense, like what to expect in terms of like its pacing. Like there was going to be some sort of like reasonably or like a cool action sequence. We were going to have we just kind of knew what to expect. This season, Boba Fett, I thought, was going to be of a similar thing, because it was another Mandalorian character. It was in the same like time period. Maybe I was wrong to assume that, but then with those 2 episodes that kind of throw it off, I feel like the Pershing episode, because of how tonally different it was, it kind of threw it all off. But then this episode definitely felt the most Mandalorian to me thus far. Tommy, what do you kind of think about like the tone and stuff of the show so far?
I honestly feel like it's been massively all over the place. Like it's really difficult, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how it reads from an audience perspective that they just have no clear vision what they want to do with each episode. They have like one idea for an overarching story, but they don't know the pieces that they need to put in each episode to get to that overarching story. At least that's what it feels like to me, because like this episode that we've just had feels so much like a filler episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are a couple of things that like, do help it, like what Rosie and you, Tech, were saying about how Bo-Katan's got some character development, and that's always a good thing. But at the same time, that character development could have been done in such a short amount of time. It literally could have been she chased the bird with with her spaceship, and then she brings the kid back and just say she shot the bird.
Yeah.
Like, and then that whole thing could have been done, and we could have had like rest of the entire episode on the flashback with Grogu, which I think would have been much better to explore a little bit more in. And they clearly put a lot of budget into this CGI bird that I don't think people really cared about all that much.
No,
and I would have rathered a better story beat that would have been.
I love that bird.
I would have rathered another gunship, Rosie.
Yeah, so the Grogu, I think we're all in agreement. The Order 66 flashback was by far the best part of this episode, right?
Yeah.
I think they are doing such a good job across all of the shows with the flashbacks of Order 66. Like, the way that they're putting it into is such a focal point now. I would argue it's like the most significant part of the Star Wars timeline. It's certainly the most interesting, or the most interested I think everyone is to see. like this when you watch or like I don't know if you guys watch much of the like commentary channels around Star Wars, or at least like see them pop up on your newsfeed. They are all, no matter what show it is, whether it be Obi-Wan, whether it be Boba Fett, whether it be Andor, like whatever, not Andor, sorry, Mando. It's always the thumbnails, the titles are always talking about the Order 66 parts and the significance of it, and like just picking apart those bits because they genuinely seem like the most interesting because people are interested about that time. Sam, what were your kind of takes on Ahmed Best coming back? Do you have any?
I'm so fuming he wasn't playing Jar Jar. Imagine the scene. Grogu going up the lift, all this high tension music, and like everyone's watching. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Opens the door. Hello, Misa. Sticks his tongue out. Grogu pushes the close button as quickly as possible.
Back down.
Fantastic. No, it was very good to see. I have to be completely honest. I did not realize it was him till I saw the credits.
Okay.
And I read his name. I was like, oh, and then yeah. But I thought it was very well done, and I just want to see the day where Disney greenlights an actual prequel show, or just like something that's set then, rather than in the post episode 6 stuff. I think they are doing that with Acolyte, but I think that's even before episode 1.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for that because I think that's going to be basically a whole show that's like these flashbacks are.
Yeah. Rosie, what about you? What are your thoughts on the Order 66 stuff?
I think it was great. I'm glad that he got to play that part because obviously he's taken a lot of flack over the years, which wasn't his fault. He's just the voice actor. But it was great. But it felt that, like what Matt said, there wasn't any context to going into that flashback. It wasn't like Andor where you switch scene and we know why, because obviously we're catching up with this specific storyline, which is been carrying on the series. It just felt like out of nowhere, and that's probably because other than that it was going to be a 15-minute episode, so you just added this flashback in there type thing. But I think it would have been fantastic if they just did, instead of these flashbacks, they just do a dedicated episode from Grogu in Order 66 all the way up to when Din Djarin gets hold of Grogu on episode 2 of The Mandalorian. Like a dedicated episode of his entire journey, I think would be absolutely fantastic. It's like a one-off. I
think that plays back into the problem that we've got with the likes of the Pershing, and that goes back to the structure that I'm kind of like against, because it then feels so separate from the rest of the show that I think I'm liking how they're doing it and doing it in parts, and then they're slowly going to progress to that point. Like I prefer that. Matt, what about you? Would you rather see it like all at once and just like route through it, or do you like that they're kind of splitting it up and putting it across multiple episodes?
I like the breadcrumbing of it, if that's what you want to call it. Like you just have a bit here, a bit there, a bit there. I think there's a couple of different reasons. I think one, as I sort of said, it's such a pivotal moment, and it was part of the the prequels. So the last prequel was 2005. So you've had 16, 17, 18 years to sort of think about it. Okay, you've been given a few little nuggets here and there. And I always think when you have things like that, which you're given enough to see it from different points of view without seeing the whole thing. I think your imagination fills in the best and fills in the blanks, and it becomes a bit more interesting. Whereas I think if you see from start going all the way through, invariably some people will like it and some people will go, no, because this is how I wanted it to be, or it's the thought of it, or whatever else. And I think it comes back a little bit to how the shows are promoted, because I thought when they first did the Bad Batch promotion, they did it very much around the Order 66. You saw Palpatine, and then it completely veered away from that. When they did the Book of Boba Fett, it felt like the promotion was, okay, this is going to be the Sopranos in space type thing with Boba heading up a crime family or whatever it was. And then they went in a completely different direction. And, this one feels a little bit like that as well. It's sort of like, okay, you started off with, okay, the Purge of Mandalore, and we'll go from there, sort of thing, in terms of either re-exploring that or building it all back up. And okay, maybe they'll get there, but it's sort of like episode 4, and it still feels like it's meandering, and a little bit like what Tommy's saying. It's sort of like, do they not know kind of where they're going, or are they treating this like a Clone Wars episode where things are rapid fire, but you're not getting that initial narrator to kind of fill in all the key bits that you need?
Yeah.
I think what we've been saying is that the Mandalorian doesn't really have. I don't think they've got an end point in mind where they want to be. So I agree that I think if they were to launch that all now about Grogu's entire backstory, they're kind of shutting off a door in the future if they ever want to go back and jump in somewhere later.
Yeah.
It's like, or if they've already said it out, but they think, oh, we could bring this back into Grogu's backstory in a much later season, because we don't know. I don't know how long it's going to go on for. I think it's in their best interest that they don't show their hand too much just now.
Yeah. Tommy, what about you?
This whole series to me just feels, again, it goes kind of back to what I was saying earlier. Just there's no direction, and I don't know. I feel like there's a lot they could have done to make each episode feel a lot easier to digest, and probably would have saved themselves a lot of time. There's a lot of things in these episodes that feel stretched out to just fill time. Yeah,
that's fair. Okay, so here's a question. So I think I don't know if you guys got this impression, but after I guess Book of Boba Fett, the whole, at least I expected the plot of season 3 to be him. I talked about this before, like him getting to the mines and like redeeming himself, and like being accepted back into the covert. I think that and they obviously like resolved that in the second episode. I think the past 2 seasons have had a very basic end point that's quite clear, but they've kind of gone around the houses a little bit. They've put in cameos for different things. There's been some side quests, and I think it's fair to say, individually on an episode by episode basis, I think the first 2 seasons have been certainly more enjoyable. Like I said, as like singular episodes. Would you guys have preferred them to keep that similar, I guess, tone, expectation, where the narrative doesn't necessarily seem all that far away, but they throw in cool cameos, they have like some problems they get in the way of it? Or do you like that they've answered that quite quickly, and now the rest of the season is unknown? Like, what are your kind of thoughts on that, Sam?
I think, as much as I've in the past ragged on the method they did before of just like side quest to side quest, I think it's better than what we've got here, because whilst at first I was like, oh, it's great that they've done this so quickly. That means we've got like another 6 episodes. Who knows where it'll go? And we're just like, oh, it's not going anywhere. They're just like sitting around waiting for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I do prefer the older method. And you never know. The last 4 episodes could really shock and surprise me, and something great could come out of it. But out of the 4 that we've seen so far, I think I'd have preferred the method from the other seasons.
Okay, Rosie, what about you?
Yeah, the issue is you're comparing like one system to basically no system. So you're comparing like side quest to side quest, but like the writers kind of know like the end goal, where, like as Jon Favreau said, like there is no planned ending from The Mandalorian, so they do not know like what's going on.
But they know what's
that's obviously no systems.
They know what's happening by the end of this season. obviously we don't know, and they've not made it very clear at all. But like, do you
True.
do you enjoy the feeling more of not knowing where this is going to go, like on a season by season, or do you like the? Yeah, okay, you're more in the camp of like, because you gave a lot of the first episode, the first 2 seasons episodes quite high scores, didn't you?
Yeah, even though like obviously just side quest stuff over and over is like, obviously it doesn't really make sense to like it because it doesn't sound like a good system, but it just felt like it worked and it was enjoyable, and I was looking forward to like, okay, how is this gonna like, you know, are they gonna get closer to their goal next time, like, or you know, what's gonna happen next? Like it just worked. I don't oppose trying new things, but you know, whatever system this is of, you know, where I just sort of don't know what's going on, I don't enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, Matt, you?
I think there's been a few problems with it. Like, as we said, the first 2 seasons, it was pretty clear where we got to. The end of the first season, it was build up to Grogu, you know, Luke coming along, you know, getting that emotional sort of thing and separating off. And it felt like that was a good thing. And then obviously Book of Boba Fett came along, despite apparently a 2-year time gap or whatever. And then Grogu came back. I think having Grogu back in the series is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can sort of have him being trained and everything like that. But if you had your first season, you know, in terms of rescuing him and moving that forward, and then the second season getting him to become a Jedi, or, you know, doing that, and then you got him back here, and then as Tommy said, and we're sort of also saying, you know, what's the point of this? Going to your question, though, in terms of for this season, if it was a matter of like what you sort of said, Tech, in terms of he goes and the whole season is for him to redeem himself, I think that could have been interesting if the Mandalore planet had some issues or something there. But, you know, they landed down here. Oh, we can breathe properly. It's sort of like, oh, okay, there's, you know, we could just walk around and, you know, do whatever. That, you know, if they were going to make it extended out to that, then there needed to be some significant problems with Mandalore to do that.
Yeah.
But when you said that, I thought that was interesting, like the episode before, because I never really particularly saw that as the major thing. I saw it more in terms of, you know, rebuilding or starting the wheels in motion to rebuild like Mandalorian as a race and everything like that.
Yeah.
And okay, they're kind of doing it, but it feels very clunky. But also too, it's sort of like, well, you had the whole thing with the Purge, and, you know, you've even got some of the remnants of the Empire still floating around and things like that. Like, I think if they're engaging with that and looking as to why they're being lied to, or, you know, what they did to the planet, or why it's still here, or, you know, is it still a factory for something else that we don't know about? Like, I think there's lots of potential there. And if they go sort of exploring that more, that could be much more satisfying.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's definitely elements that they obviously would, like you said, Mandalore would have had to have had some significant problems, and that's probably something that they could have found out along the way, I guess, as Mando interacts with different characters and stuff. He could get like little tidbits of how he could go and track the guy that got the piece from Mandalore. Things like that, I think, would have been possibly more in vein of what they did before. It's like, oh, there's this, but first you gotta find him, and then he'll give you a little nugget of information, a bit like they did with Ahsoka to find Luke, like that kind of style. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence, because my problem when I first watched season 2 was that I really didn't think the story was going anywhere. When I rewatched it, I enjoyed it a lot more, and I think maybe that was partly because I was like watching them back to back. And this is kind of what I've been calling out for, is like more of an overarching story. I'm not sure if I'm quite sold on it yet. I feel like and it's a bit of a cop out, but like I feel like to have a proper thought on it, you've kind of got to see the whole series. But then that does, like I said last week, that doesn't really work when you're doing it when you're releasing it like episodically. So yeah, the verdict's still out on this one. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm liking from it yet. Sam, you look poised to say something.
It really does feel like we're living cliffhanger to cliffhanger, waiting for the next big thing to happen. So at least we'll deal with that next time, so that'll be good. and then it kind of just gets brushed over almost, and then they move on to something else, and there's a new cliffhanger. I'm like, oh, okay, that'll be interesting. See how we deal with that next episode, and then just the same cycle.
Yeah.
Well, I'll counteract what I immediately said about 5 minutes ago.
One second, Sam. Have you got a? Is that can everyone else hear that, or is that just me? Sounds like
Yeah,
a little loose. Have you got like a little loose wire or something? Maybe.
Sounds like a Dalek.
Yeah. But...
2 seconds, I'll leave and join again.
Okay, mate. Not that Sam Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see that he's invested in a new mic and he's not still on his Poundland one that he's that he got. But always microphone issues.
I think maybe the hybrid system works, basically what Andor did, where it's like you have a bigger overarching story, but you have like the 3-episode hike. So not a hike, not like a what am I saying, a hike? Like what would you call it? Like an adventure or whatever. Yeah, it's every episode that like goes into a new one, every single one. But basically you have it over like 3 episodes. You have like an arch and then that comes to a close and you start another one. So it's sort of like both. Like so it's sort of a hybrid system. But obviously with 8 episodes there's just not enough, room really to do that, I guess. But
yeah,
that's just a question of us to just invest more in the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Sam, carry on. What were you going to say?
Am I standing all right now? Or is it the same issue? Yeah. All right. Cool. Basically, to counteract what I just said before, if it is the case though that this entire series was just about him getting redeemed, would it then mean that season 4 would be all about what we've seen in the last 2 episodes? Because in case season 4 is going to suck.
Well, there is that. If that's the poor writing choices that they were, I guess they had to speed, especially when they're going to tie so many other shows into it, which I think maybe is the Mandalorian's biggest problem at the moment. They drew people in the first series for sure, so that people were really like interested. People stayed fairly interested throughout season 2 when they were obviously bringing in characters to set up other shows, but I think they, in hindsight from watching it back, I think they did it well enough that it worked, and it didn't feel too forced. But now I think it's just so apparent that they're trying to world build, that the Mandalorian's losing a lot of its charm and it's a lot of its kind of purpose. Well, not necessarily purpose. I guess it's got the most purpose because it is other shows. But you go on, Matt.
Yeah, I think the way that I'd look at it is very much like, the second season they brought in lots of things and they build worlds, but it's sort of like the Marvel way of building it. You do it at a right pace, and there's a bigger thing, and it fits in and it works within itself. Whereas this season seems to be more like the DC approach, where you just throw things in, you're not really sure what's happening, and nobody's really sure and in control, and then as you say, the Mando itself is actually suffering. I mean, it does worry, if they're like, well, we have no end in sight for the show, or we don't know where it's going. Well, that's a bit of a concern. I mean, again, I don't know the context of how that was said and things like that. It's like story, beginning, middle, end. Like if you don't have the middle, okay, yes, there's some flexibility depending upon fan reaction, and a character can come out of the woodwork which becomes really strong, or you get a strong actor doing something. Okay, you've got that built in, but where is this season going? Like, I mean, I think that's the next thing in terms of from where we are now, where would people like to see the season go, or what would feel satisfying?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of got, because up until like we saw the TIE interceptors from the beginning of the last episode, it wouldn't have been crazy to think that it wouldn't feel out of place if we didn't see the Imperial Remnant from this season. I don't know if you guys like because we saw the interceptors before we saw the whole Pershing arc, like that wouldn't. So, and they obviously established that there's going to be something significant that happens with Navarro. There's going to be something, the pirates are probably going to have a fairly significant part for them to introduce those guys into it. Like, at least whether it feels significant or not, that's like probably I think we've seen from the trailer, like they all jump out of Bo-Katan's ship onto Navarro. So the pirates, I think the way that it's going is the pirates are going to go and infiltrate Navarro.
The pirates will definitely be brought back because they wouldn't have introduced the captain for no reason. They would have just kept it at the scene outside of the bar, and then maybe they shoot in the ships. They wouldn't introduce this entire other character if they were not planning on bringing them back.
What I've heard is that the captain, the pirate captain, is going to be in another show. I can't remember the name of it, but that's what I've been told. Because that's why he was introduced here. But I obviously don't know how true that is. But
okay, yeah, I guess what I would like to see is assuming. I would like to, because they've also talked about the people that were riding with Bo-Katan before were like, hi Ollie, how you doing, dude? The people that were riding with Bo-Katan are just like roaming the galaxy. So like, if they are to truly want to unite Mandalore and unite Mandalorians, like when are some of those characters going to come back in? Like what role are they going to play? I guess what I really want is just to see this kind of this group of people like I guess extend out to the other Mandalorians that are out there, and then something significant happen with the Imperial Remnant, that they become the next bad either for the next series, like for Mando season 4 maybe, and then that's a bit clear going into it. But yeah, it's all just so unclear at the moment. It's hard to predict. But yeah, Rosie, what would you kind of like to see going forward, do you think?
I mean, I think I've given up on
if you were in charge of the last 4 episodes, if you were these are the 4 episodes that you've seen, you're in charge of the last 4. Where would you take it? Like continuing threads of what we've seen so far, not just completely disregarding it because you didn't like it. But like taking on those, like where would you?
I think I'd want to move. So objectively, I'm not enjoying the Australian Mandalorian planet. I don't want to see any more creatures. I want to move Bo-Katan.
I thought you said you liked the pterodactyl.
No, the nonsense. I understand why they use to move the story forward or move Bo-Katan's story forward, but the only interesting characters on those planets are Grogu, Bo-Katan, and Din Djarin. So I want to move those 3 characters off that planet for whatever reason. And I think the only reason that it's sort of believable that they'd leave, on a sort of mission-y thing, is if something I don't know, Moff Gideon escaped jail. And maybe he tries to take over his light cruiser again, and then Bo-Katan's people are in trouble, and obviously she goes off with, Din Djarin to try and rescue them type thing. I think I'd want to see something like that, and hopefully that ties in this new character. Maybe we see this new woman, this Imperial woman or whatever the name is, on that ship as well, next to Moff Gideon. Maybe she escapes him from jail. I don't know how it would work, but I think I'd want to develop a storyline like that, get the Imperials back in it, and get Din Djarin and Bo-Katan off this planet, essentially. That would be my objective. I want that all to happen in the next episode, but
all in the next episode. Wow, okay.
I'm desperate to move on. We haven't got a lot of episodes left. We've got 4 episodes left to try and make something off this series. So, yeah.
Well, all I'm going to say is manage expectation, because we might get that by the end of next season. Yeah. But
I've lost hope, but we'll see what happens.
Upside Down Brick, how you doing? He says, not been a fan of this season so far at all. Is anyone else kind of sick of Grogu? I mean, I think it's quite clear that he's probably wasn't meant to play a significant role in this season, on the back of the end of season 2, but whoever's meddled and the toy manufacturers have been like, no, we can't have that.
Yeah.
Um,
The marketing people saw the episode and just freaked out. It's like, no,
Yeah.
go back. No way is he going anywhere.
Yeah. And so yeah, and then arguably like his story has had probably maybe the best scene from the season so far in terms of the flashback. He's just there to make absolutely. Pardon?
Just basically shoved in there out of nowhere, like, oh no, this episode's rubbish, quick. Flashback, what does it say?
What does it say? Safe button. Like, oh dear. He just makes it. Yeah, I think the thing is, upside down break. If you just have that in mind every time you watch Grogu, there is nothing that he will do that will be like cool or significant or like that won't annoy you. It's like so obvious. Like if you just cling on to that, I think if you do actually want to try and enjoy the show, if you're like, if that's enough for you and you're like, okay, I'm done, like this is just so obvious now, like check out. But I feel like if you do actually want to try and like the show or try get some enjoyment out of the show, there's certain things you need to, well, not just you specifically, but just people in general need to kind of let go. And Grogu being a cash cow is absolutely one of them. Ollie says, yeah, the flashback was cool, but shoehorned in, like you say. Yeah, he should have stayed with Luke and not been in this season at all. I think we're all in agreement. It would have been far more. I think Din Djarin would have been a bit more of an interesting character. Like he'd obviously formed a big, strong attachment. He had a lot of purpose in the first two seasons, getting Grogu back to his people, as he said, and then it would have been really interesting to see, like, well, what's next for him, like, especially with the covert turning on him as well, or like kicking him out. He could have been a really like struggled character, which could have, I think there could have been some good interesting points and stories to pick up from there. Yeah, that would have been really good. Yeah, exactly. Sam, if you were in charge of the next 4 episodes, what are you doing with them?
Right, number one, we what would I do with the next 4 episodes of The Mandalorian? I'd
You sound like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Are you writing for them?
Yeah.
Oh, John,
See, I don't want to get spoilers. Is the thing.
We'll go to Matt. Well, let's have a look. Matt, what you got?
What have I got? First thing I'd do is I would have Ahsoka turn up and go, we need Grogu for secret Jedi business and only he can help because Luke's in trouble. Fantastic. He gets out of there. And then we can follow it up later. But no, in all seriousness, I would have... Sorry?
Or as you said, just get him off the planet.
Yeah.
Sorry. So just get him off that planet,
yeah. So, but I would bring back the Imperial aspect of it and sort of really delve into that, have them go and explore that, what's happened to the planet, and then they find something or they get attacked again, or there's something that happens there, which then propels the next couple episodes, not so much in terms of a rescue or something like that, but really trying to find out, there's something which has happened, which caused all this. And by them going through this and getting to the other side of it, they can discover the truth, which would then, there'd be something there which would enable them to sort of bring it all back together or kickstart it all again. And then that can possibly set up the whole of the next season 4. I'd do something in that sort of vein.
Okay. Sam, got any inspiration from Matt's opinions?
We have Ahsoka short to take Grogu, says, we need Grogu for some and then, what was the rest of the thing you said, Matt? I think if we are using Mando as basically a launch point for all the other Star Wars shows, and obviously the next big one is Ahsoka. Let's get Ahsoka in the show. I don't know how they're going to do that, especially if they're stuck. All right, new thing. Death Star 4. Are we on 4 or 3? Shows up. We nuke the desert planet of all the Mandalorians are on. We don't know.
Oh my god.
Who cares about the little pterodactyl babies? They can all get blown off to the wind. Crocodile. Gone.
They save children. It's so thoughtful of them by making them their slaves.
What's going on with that? We're gonna make these dinosaurs Mandalorian foundling. Sorry, what? How are they gonna say the Kree? What's going on?
Oh man, they're gonna ride him with when Paz Vizsla can't get his hands on the mythosaur. They're gonna be riding the dinosaurs.
When he runs out of fuel next time.
Yeah.
James Cameron starts directing.
That's how to get off the planet. Yeah. They go on the baby pterodactyls because they've lost all the shit.
Can they breathe in space?
Oh dear.
I can imagine the next Time Interceptor fight. The Time Interceptors are flying, and then that's when they open up the hatch to launch the Mandalorians. Quick, drop the birds! And they all fly down and they just start attacking the windows of the Time Interceptors.
They just start crapping everywhere. And...
honestly, I don't know how they're even going to plan to use those in another episode. They're just pointless.
I'm telling you, Din Djarin will ride on the mythosaur, and the others, Grogu will ride on the mythosaur.
This is what's going to happen.
Din Djarin, Paz Vizsla, and Bo-Katan will be riding on the dinosaur. You heard it here first.
Another prediction I can guarantee right now: in the last episode of this season, either a character, but most likely Moff Gideon shows up. He finds a gun, and he shoots Grogu point blank in the chest. Bang!
Oh yeah.
Mando drops to his knees. Maybe even takes off his helmet. No. Screams,
Disney
no! And then cradling Grogu in his hands, takes off his helmet again, just like they did at the end of Mando season 2, and breaks the creed again, and then goes, "Oh, I'm so upset." And then Grogu
He's got the armor on.
I got this cool armor, mate. And then Mando goes, "Oh, for fuck's sake, we're gonna go back to the planet again." And then season 4, we just run the whole thing again. That's Mando season 3.
I generally think it's going to happen where like Bo-Katan's people are going to send a mayday, being like, "Oh, our light cruiser is being attacked," and then Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are going to go off see what's going on. And it's like they open the doors and Moff Gideon's there. He's escaped jail thanks to this woman Imperial person on the Republic planet, and it's a trap. And you know who saves them? Because it's like a big trap. Cobb Vanth is going to show up with.
He's
the
not.
No, it's going to be Boba Fett on his Rancor.
No, honestly, I think Cobb Vanth will be in the show, and he will become like the sheriff of whatever it's called. What's it called again?
Navarro.
Navarro, yeah, Navarro.
He's going to be the daimyo of Tatooine. Like that's what they were setting up with that. He's not going to be in.
Nah, he's going to be in this. But before they get to the Moff Gideon's light cruiser, they're going to go get the droid, and he's going to play some magical part.
No, I don't know what your obsession with Cobb Vanth is and why you keep thinking he's going to show up, but I really don't see it. I really don't think it.
Because why would he ask? Oh, you need to be the sheriff here, and then he's like, nah. It just feels like a worthless conversation to have, where Cobb Vanth would be the perfect sheriff for that town.
What that meant was that they're extremely under they've got no protection, and that's why the pirates are going to walk in there easy. That's what that was setting up. I don't think it was.
Cobb Vanth.
You're mad.
Yeah, but here's the end of season 2.5. We had the Cobb Vanth flashback thing of he's in the back to tank, so he's obviously alive.
No, that's all
season 2, so it must be Mandalorian. It must be.
That's all Tatooine stuff. So, yeah, nah. Hey, Craig, how you doing, mate?
I'm pretty sure that the Moff Gideon's the next episode though, because I think he spoiled it, right?
He was in the. Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was asked is he going to be in the next episode then? Following a question of him returning, because he was like, what's the last scene you played? And do you remember? And he was like, yeah, I was in prison. And he was like, are you going to be in the next episode, season 5? And he was just in episode 5 on Wednesday. He was like, yeah. But I don't know if that was just a yeah, like whatever, or just like, yes, I am gonna be. But like he was in the trailer, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if he is in the next episode.
Oh yeah. So I think there's gonna I think honestly, if it was me, I think I'd leave the Imperial Remnant for this season. I know they won't now because
Get another raptor out.
No, I think I would go back to what they've done well so far, like in the past seasons, and do something with these pirates and like the Mandalorians versus the pirates on Navarro, playing for that, like, because we've seen that the kind of high stakes stuff they can't really seem to get right at the moment. Upside down my prediction for the rest of the season is that where I will be disappointed.
Did you really think that's going to be like after all this? All that happens is like, oh, Mando stops like some pirates. Like,
no, I don't think that will be all of it, but they're setting up the Imperial Remnant to have Thrawn be the focus, and why that they search like why that's going to be the purpose of the Ahsoka show, right? Is for them to find Thrawn. So they're not going to go and dive into the Imperial Remnant at this point in this season. Like they're not going to go and do too much in regards. There'll be obviously there's going to be scenes from Moff Gideon stuff. I don't think the last 4 episodes, like otherwise the pirates are just going to be pointless. And we've seen that the Mandalorians go to Navarro anyway, so there's obviously going to be a conflict there that's probably going to span 1, maybe 2 episodes. If we don't get the pirates in the next episode, then it's going to be the season finale, and that's going to be the end point. Like, unfortunately,
just like Grief Karga called Din Djarin. The client wants the Jawa back. Oh, the client's dead. Yeah, well, he's alive again. Come back to the
Ollie says, I'm enjoying the show myself. I don't have much in the way of expectations. So yeah, to be honestly, like I think I just need to absolutely lower my expectations. The thing was, I managed to do that, and I went into Andor, and I absolutely loved it, and it was insane. And so now I'm like, oh, and then I rewatched Mandalorian, and I was like, oh, this is actually I like this. This is good. And then and now I'm getting my hopes up again, and it's not.
Do you reckon we'd look at this show differently if Andor wasn't as good as it was?
No.
Do you reckon
I think it's really bad so far. Like, I think the Book of Boba Fett, the first 4 episodes of that show, have been better than the first 4 episodios of this show.
I disagree with that.
Boba
Fett was another level.
You're high, guy.
I'm really, really disappointed of the Mandalorian so far, unfortunately.
Andor was absolutely incredible. Blandor versus Mando. We got some conflicting opinions there in the chat. Somehow the client returned. Oh yeah, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh,
I want to see the baby.
There we go. Ollie's saying that Andor was brilliant as well. Okay, Craig, what are you latching on to with Mando that you're enjoying so much? I'll be interested to know, because there's definitely parts of and elements that I am enjoying. And yeah, Ollie, the character development in Andor was great. Like a character-centered story was so desperately needed in Star Wars, comparatively to the 2 Mando seasons that were just a lot of action and cameos and stuff. It was so boring. The only good thing about Andor was Luthen. The bits with Andor were crap. In fact, Andy Serkis made his scenes good. That's it. Okay. But yeah, what is it about Mandalorian that you've liked so much from this series? Like, because I think the general consensus is kind of it's been a bit all over the place. But yeah.
Sorry to deflect. I'm building the brickhead, the Mandalorian brickhead set. I went to Lego Store today and picked it up. When did this set come out?
2019. Yeah.
Oh, well, so it was literally like 4 years ago. Because it's called The Child, and like I'm just surprised it's not called Grogu, but that would explain why it's not called Grogu on the box.
Yeah. Craig is enjoying that Grogu is the Mandalorian, not Ginger. Yeah, I think that's something we've not kind of really talked about much. Is like, maybe it's because it's so obvious, but like everyone's wondering about like, oh, is it going to be Din or is it going to be Bo-Katan that wield the darksaber next?
Grogu, it's 3 times the size of him.
It's probably going to be Grogu, isn't it? Like, and I am enjoying seeing him like still using. I'm glad that he's not just like completely not using the Force and like he's like incorporating that into his. He's going to become a Jedi again eventually, I'm sure. But the whole season has been brilliant, and Kelleran Beck was genius. I don't know if he's trolling or if he's or if he's deadly serious.
I think he's just trolling.
Kelleran Beck was good.
Does sound like crazy trolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like 10 out of 10. You're just going to like anything Disney's going to put in front of you, I think, at this point. But
he went with the darksaber. Bo-Katan Bo-Katan will have it possibly for a bit, but he's deadly serious. Trust me. Cheers, Barry. How you doing, dude? Grogu looks so goofy to me when he moves. With a darksaber, just would adjust to fit Grogu. So it's the dinky saber. That would be a joke. They just put it in the tumble dryer for a bit too long. Okay, so and you back him back. Oh, interesting. Okay, so
I guess we have to adjust the baby mode to allow them to hold the darksaber.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So we'll go around. Tommy's like completely disappeared off the face of the earth, but let's give a quick score for this episode, and then I think we'll wrap things. Oh, I'll just read what Craig said. Deadly serious. I watched the other Star Wars guys talk about the show and all the Easter eggs, and I agree with them. People like Emergency or something. Okay, I haven't watched that channel specifically. Never heard so much guff lately over the hate for this series. Really. I just think the purpose isn't clear. Which, like I said, I wasn't. It was kind of what I asked for, and now I don't know if I've asked for the wrong thing. Like I don't know. I don't think this is as easily enjoyable as past seasons of Mandalorian has been. I don't know though. But yeah, Matt, give us a score.
I'm gonna give it a 7 for this episode. There was some, generally some enjoyable bits to it. You've got to try to forget about some parts of it or the logic, like in terms of the giant bird and having it in its mouth for 2 days and weird stuff like that. But as what we sort of wanted out of the last when we was talking, give us some direction for some of the characters and that. And I think we got it. Hopefully we can see some more of the whole leftovers of the Imperial and move that in the next sort of block of 3 or 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Craig, Upside Down Brick says 3 out of 10 for me. Craig is saying it's funny, it's action packed, and it's building the story. Really not rocket science. I'd argue that the only the first episode didn't have any action in really, other than like this, I guess the space fight a little bit.
Definitely didn't progress the story.
Which didn't progress the story. There was the interceptor chase. Okay, great, but then there was another 50 minutes after that that had no action at all.
The jumping off the train scene was action. Oh, it was going on.
Episode 2, I'll give progressed the story, but like there was still not really much action. I know you had the crab.
He fought the spider thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's action packed. It's but like episode 2 definitely progressed the story. I'd give that.
I think episode 2 has been the most. I've enjoyed it the most. 10 out of 10 for the special effects on the fighting in the air. Yeah, I'll give you that. I will give you that. Actually, 3 might be too high. I'll drop it to a 2. There was really nothing I liked from it. Oh dear.
There's a lot of strong difference of opinions. No one's really been like, "Oh, it's okay." Everyone's just like, "This is the worst thing ever," or like the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's the worst thing ever.
No, yeah, it just seems that like a lot of the discourse is like either people hate it or people love it.
Yeah. Sam, scores from you.
I'm probably going to lean on like a 6 or 7, probably a 6. The flashback scene does help it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm really like, it just feels like generally the stakes are a lot lower this season. Because I guess like the threats aren't as big. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can improve on that in the next couple episodes, which I think they will do. Because I think there needs to be like a big, like overall point to the season.
Yeah.
And for that, you need a conflict. You need a good villain. And we thought at the beginning that was going to be the armorer was going to be the main conflict, but I don't really think that's going to be the case now.
No,
so I'm interested to see what direction they take instead.
Yeah, I think they're more. I thought that at one point that a lot of the opposition to Din Djarin was going to be within, like, whether it be the armorer or like Paz Vizsla or like just other Mandalorians in general. But I think that they've kind of, with this episode, I don't think they're going to go that route now. I think they're pretty like united, I guess, as a group. Rosie, did you give a score?
Well, I know I gave the first 3 episodes all 5s. It's just like a placeholder because I have no idea. Like, it's hard to judge each episode individually of like how the story is going because, like you say, it doesn't seem like each individual episode has like its own story. It's all part of this one big one, which we don't really know what it is yet.
Yeah.
But I'll probably lower the first 2 episodes to a 4 from a 5, and then give obviously the last episode I keep it a 5, and I'll also give this episode a 5. Yeah, that'll be like my scores so far for the series.
Okay. Matt, do you give a score? Sorry, I completely lost my trail of thought.
7.
7. Okay. Yeah. I think mine is a 7 for this episode. Whilst I went into this episode wanting more in terms of progression in the story and like who the opposition's going to be, bearing in mind this is now the halfway point in the series and we don't really know. We've kind of got hints that it might be the Imperial Remnant. We've also got hints that it could be the pirates as well. I kind of wanted a bit more from it, but actually what we got did kind of answer a lot of questions I think I would have had if we didn't have this episode. And it made sense that this was a lot shorter episode, I think, because it really didn't need to be dragged out any longer than it did. I think they've established that the covert is very, very much united now. There's going to be no real suspicions if they go on a mission, and there's going to be like tons of backstabbing and things, which I think could have been something that would have happened if this episode hadn't established that. I think I give a 7 as well. And yeah, just hope to see. I think, like Sam said, I just hope to see some bigger stakes be introduced, and some meaningful threats that's not just another beast from the water or from the sky or from the rocks or whatever.
Oh, new prediction next episode: a giant worm comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, great dragon appears.
Great dragon comes back.
Yeah, so that's where I'm kind of at. Upside down, where it says I'd give the most recent episode a 2 or 3 out of 10 and a 4 or 5 for the season as a whole so far. Okay, cool. Well, we shall leave it on that. I think Tommy gave it a 4 earlier as well. So yeah, we'll leave it on that and hope for, I guess, bigger, maybe better things come Wednesday, and maybe have a bit more of an inkling of where this season is kind of going. I think that's the common thread from what we all want from the next episode is a bit of clarity of where we're going to be on the journey we're going to take on the last few episodes. So we shall leave it on that, guys. Have a great rest of your evening. The BrickBods will be streaming. They'll be kicking off in a few minutes, so go check them out. They'll be, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're doing the chalet or what they've got to build, but they'll be building something fun. So yeah, go check out the BrickBods. And yeah, we will see you guys all soon. Oh, has anyone got anything they want to kind of plug, promote?
I'll do...
Go on.
Go on, Matt, first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thursday night, 8:30 UK time, which I think now has gone back to about 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Just a general build stream. Tech, I think, maybe on that one, and people sitting around and talking about the latest and things that are happening. So by all means, come along and join us for that. Thank you.
Cool, Rosie.
Make sure to subscribe to Topic Rick's YouTube channel for amazing content, which will eventually come out. Tomorrow, I promise there will be a video if I'm feeling good, because I feel a bit poorly at the minute. But yeah.
Okay. Sam, what about you?
Building more Mondays, usually around 6 p.m. I'm sometimes there for the premiere, sometimes not.
You're never there for the premiere. What are you talking about?
I'm working on Monday, and More Monday is the best sounding title. So if I have to line it up with my break. It's awkward. I promise this week's episode does not feature a whiteboard.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. I'm going to sit and enjoy that one then. Yeah, I will be streaming on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. I've got 2 bags left on the Razor Crest, so I might finish that and then build the display case and see if I can get it to fit in there. If not, I might build the Razor Crest beforehand, finish that off tomorrow, and then build something else. I'm unsure as of yet, but yeah, we shall see. And then I posted a couple of videos in the last few days. Go check them out. Some convention stuff, and yeah, there'll be hopefully a video on Wednesday reviewing a custom Darksaber that I bought from Demon Hunter Brick. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. But the whiteboard bits are the best. I don't know about that.
See,
don't encourage it.
I can't please everybody.
No, you certainly can't. Okay, guys, thank you very much, and enjoy your evening. Goodbye.